Today we're going to start our lesson on unit rate, and the question I want you to think about through the lesson is how do we determine unit rate? You're probably wondering what unit rate is. Unit rate is going to be important to you, especially when you get out and you start working, and you're going to have to go to the grocery store and you want to see what the best buy is. Unit rate becomes really important to you, so I want you to be diligent in taking notes through this lesson so that you can use them to help you on your lesson work and help you better understand what unit rate is. So let's go ahead and start with our lesson objective for today. Our lesson objective is I am learning to calculate unit rate. As always, we need to kind of get an idea of what unit rate is. A rate is a ratio that compares two quantities with different units of measure. I've got some examples of rates that I have shown below for you there. Let's look at what I'm talking about with two different units of measure. So I have miles per gallon. So my measurements here are miles and gallon or gallons. If I had 540 miles on 18 gallons of gas, I would write my ratio or my rate as 540 miles for 18 gallons of gas. So it takes 18 gallons of gas for every 540 miles. If I were going to use it for a cost, I would do $3.60 for 4 pounds or $3.66 over 4 pounds, like I would if I wanted to write it like a fraction. If I had a pay rate of $285 for 30 hours, I could write that as $285 over 30 hours. To write it as just a regular ratio. But there is a way that I can calculate to get rates, and we're going to move forward in our lesson and see how we can do that. We're still going to be working on getting the idea, and here rates are often given as a unit rate, which I just told you about earlier. Unit rate is a rate in which the second measure is a 1 unit. We want to know what 1 unit cost, if it's 1 mile or 1 gallon or 1 orange or 1 pound. So each of the rates listed below can be simplified as unit rates. It's actually the one above with the one we just looked at. So let's go down and we're going to look at those same rates. If I were to want to find out what 1 gallon of gasoline how many miles I could get from that, I could use division here to get it. So I'm going to go from 18 gallons to 1 gallon. I could find out the value here based on the calculations that I get when I use division. Cost is $3.66 for 4 pounds. If I were to do it by division, I would get 1 pound is 90 cents. The rate of pay, 1 hour, I would be making $9.50. So you can find out the unit rate to help you solve problems that you might want to look at, especially if you're looking for the best buy. Because a lot of times companies sell things in bulk, but maybe the buy isn't as good. If you do this calculation, you may find out that you may get a better buy with a different packaging. This lesson is the never-ending getting the idea. We've got another continued. So in general, for every ratio A to B, the corresponding unit rate is A over B, where B is not equal to 0. So it's kind of like the fractions when we dealt with those that B would not be 0. The denominator would not be 0. So for example, if there are 4 cups of cranberry juice to every 5 cups of orange juice in a punch recipe, the ratio of cranberry juice to orange juice is 4 to 5, or 4 over 5. That means that there are 4/5 cup of cranberry juice for every 1 cup of orange juice. You can see this mathematically by multiplying each quantity by 5. So we're going to see some of that in some of our examples in the rest of the lesson. So let's go ahead and look at example 1. A recipe for trail mix uses 5 ounces of mixed nuts, 6 ounces of dried fruit, and 4 ounces of granola. How many ounces of granola are there for every ounce of dried fruit? So the first thing that you're going to do is write a ratio, and then you're going to find the unit rate. I want you to pause the video and try it on your own. See what you can come up with, and then we'll go over our explanation. So pause the video now, please. All right, in step 1, we want to write the, not ration, I've got ration there, the ratio of granola to the dried fruit. For every 4 ounces of granola, there are 6 ounces of dried fruit. The ratio of granola to dried fruit is 4 to 6, or 4/6. Now remember, we want to go ahead and get that in simplest form. So simplest form would be 2/3, or 2 to 3. Interpret the ratio as a unit rate. And the ratio 2 to 3 means that there is 2/3 ounce of granola for every 1 ounce of dried fruit. Here's where I was telling you that you could check your work by multiplying. Earlier when I said that multiply by 5, let's try this here where we're going to multiply by 6. So you're going to check your work. As you can see, I did 2 over 3, and that's going to be over the 1 because I said the ratio was 2/3 to every 1. And here you can multiply this part of the ratio and this part of the ratio by 6, and you should get 4/6. So for every 4 ounces of granola, there are 6 ounces of dried fruit. The solution here is going to be the simplified form, which is there are 2/3 ounce of granola for each ounce of dried fruit. So each ounce means 1, or per ounce would mean 1. All right, let's go on to example 2. Mr. Wilson spent $252 to stay 3 nights at Pava Pavilions. At that rate, how much will he spend to stay 7 nights? So the strategy here is to find the unit price, then multiply by 7. I want you to pause the video and try it on your own first, and then we'll go into the explanation. Okay, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to find the rate. So the rate is $252 for 3 nights. So you're going to write that as 252 over 3. Step 2 is you're going to find the unit rate or the unit price. We want to know what the price is for 1 night. So you're going to divide 252 by 3 to find the price for just 1 night. If you do those calculations, you can go ahead and do your division bar and do your division. The unit price is going to actually equal $84 per night. Now that we have that, we should be able to calculate how much it's going to cost to stay 7 nights. So step 3, we're going to actually take our $84 that we calculated times 7, and that should equal $588. So the solution for the cost would be Mr. Wilson will spend $588 to stay 7 nights at Pava Pavilions. As most of us find our own way to do things, there is another way here that will help you get the same answer, and that's through cross multiplying. Since we did our last lesson on cross multiplying, hopefully that'll help you feel more comfortable with it to try it in this lesson. So in example 2, you could have also set up an equivalent ratio, and again I put rations for some reason, ratio to solve the problem. So let X represent the cost of staying 7 nights. So in this case, we would write it as 252 over 3 is equal to X over 7. So X is the unknown value that we're looking for. Remember that when you cross multiply, you should get 3X is equal to 1,764. To isolate that variable here, you're going to want to divide both sides by 3. So we're going to divide 3X by 3 and 1,764 by 3. When you do that division, X should equal $588. So it's just the same answer that we had previously, just done in a different way. So if you're feeling more comfortable with cross multiplication, you may want to use that instead. One of the most commonly used rates is the speed formula. So here's where we're going to start learning some formulas, and you may want to just make a note in your notebook somewhere and list it as formulas for 6th grade, because we're just now getting ready to start with formulas. You're going to have many more when we start geometry. So the formula for speed is R is equal to distance over time. So we're looking at rate is equal to distance over time. So let's try example 3 using that formula. So hopefully you wrote it down. If you didn't, I stop the video and rewind it and go back and get that formula again. A train is traveling at a constant speed of 45 miles per hour. How far will the train travel in 2.5 hours? So the strategy I want you to use is use the speed formula, and I want you to pause the video and try it on your own first. So you're going to input the values in the appropriate area in that formula, and then you're going to calculate it. So pause the video and try it on your own. Okay, so the first step here is you're going to substitute the known values into the formula. And again, the formula is R is equal to D over T, which is rate is equal to distance over time. We know that our rate was 45, and we also knew that our time was 2.5 hours. We were looking for the distance. So your formula would look something like this. Or you could have written it as 45 over 1 to get your proportion set up. Step 2 is find an equivalent fraction for 45 over 1 with a denominator of 2.5. So that's one of the methods that you could use there. So when we do that, we know that if we're multiplying anything times 1, it keeps its own identity. So we're going to multiply 2.5 times 1 to get 2.5. Remember, you have to be fair here. So if you're going to do the denominator by 2.5, you have to multiply also the numerator by 2.5. And when you do that, your value should be 112.5. So the solution here is the train will travel 112 and 5/10 miles in 2.5 hours. We can also rewrite the speed formula of rate is equal to distance over time to solve for either distance or time. So let's look at some of those ways too, and these are things that you probably should go ahead and write down in that notebook like I suggested. If R is equal to D over T, then D is equal to R times T. So we could actually figure out the distance with this calculation as well. Or we could use, if R is equal to D over T, then T is equal to D over R. In example 3, you could have used the speed formula of D is equal to R times T to solve the problem as well. So let's look at how that would work here. I would do D is equal to 45 times 2.5, and 45 times 2.5 gives me 112 and 5/10. So in this case, we could have used this formula as well. All right, let's revisit our learning objective for today. I'm learning to calculate unit rate. Hopefully you've enjoyed this lesson and took great notes so it could help you on your lesson work. Again, this is one of those lessons that is going to be beneficial to you in real world situations when you become an adult, or even as a teenager or a young adult. You may need to find out what the better buy is because you want to be able to save money. So this is one of those ways. It's a really important lesson for you because it's one that you're going to use in everyday life. Have a great day. Thank you.